Andy Smith. Andysmith. So most of my career, I've drawn superhero books for Marvel, DC, and companies like that. And when I started publishing my own stuff, I started with a character called First Man, who is a superhero that takes place in the real world. So I wanted to kind of switch gears and go in a different direction after the second volume of First Man came out. And I always had a love for characters like Conan and Tarzan, and that whole fantasy barbarian type world. So I talked to my buddy Dennis, who is big into role playing games and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, and basically said, do you want to collaborate on this? And this is the seed of an idea, and the seed of my idea was a barbarian book with the main character being this brutish barbarian. His partner or sidekick, you could say, is I wanted it to be a female, and that's Adriana, and she's a sorceress. And the big thing is I just want to do something totally different from drawing real world, superheroes with buildings and cars and stuff like that. Getting people to show interest in CoreDraft, it's hard. I have a YouTube channel. I have a personal YouTube channel, and then Dennis and I have a YouTube channel that he runs called The DNA Show. And we started, doing YouTube videos. We do a weekly YouTube show where we have guests on, and we would just start talking about the new project and showing images from it. And then it was in 2022 when we did the first campaign on Indiegogo to crowdfund the book. And when you do that, you really have to get out there and promote it through your own YouTube channel. But then there's this really huge community of comic book creators that have their own YouTube channels. And we would just reach out to them. Some of them are my friends, and some we would just reach out to and ask if we could go on their channel and basically promote the book and do like an interview and stuff. So it's really a lot of ground level meeting people too, through going to conventions and promoting it that way. I mean, when it comes to drawing the characters, I always obviously work with a writer. I've written a few things of my own and co-written, but the way Dennis and I work, we collaborate on the script, and he gives me basic direction. That's what most writers do, and it's up to me. I mean, that's a part of storytelling. That's what I learned when I went to art school, was how to tell a story visually on the page through individual panels, and when you put all the panels together, it creates that story. So it's kind of like directing a movie in a way and doing storyboards, except when you do storyboards for a movie, the shape stays the same, the letterbox shape. Whereas in comics, we can, change the panels to any size we want. But I'm still thinking about establishing shots, long shots, medium shots, close-ups, extreme close-ups, and, and then getting into down shots, up shots, and things like that to make the images and the story as exciting as I can through this visual medium where there is no movement on the actual page. That's my job with how I move the camera around. So I mean, it's 33 years of doing it. I mean, obviously I started right when I graduated art school, working for DC, and it was through the 3 years of art school and the self-teaching I did before I went to art school that apparently I learned enough because they gave me a job. So CoreDraft is a barbarian. There is magical stuff that takes place in this world that we're creating for CoreDraft. And while CoreDraft has, he's stronger than a regular person, but he's not like a superhero strong. He does have this lion tattoo because the tribe he belongs to is the Red Lion tribe. And the tattoo that takes up a good part of his chest, when he goes into this certain, I guess you could say, rage mode when he's in a battle, that tattoo will glow and can enhance him some. So, I mean, that's about it. Other than that, he's a very well-trained fighter because he grew up in this, barbarian type world where in the specific tribe he grew up in, it was all about teaching the young men how to grow up to be warriors, basically. So he's been learning that his whole life. And now, if you read the first book, you'll see that he's able to, for lack of a better word, unlock what the tattoo can help him do. Yeah, I mean, Kordrath is, I'd say, the top dog main character of the story. Secondary is Adriana, who is his partner, but also, his girlfriend, the love interest in the book. She comes from a different tribe called the Black Eagles tribe, and she is a sorceress. So she has magical powers that she can use when she needs to, some healing type powers. She can create fireballs and like these fire darts that she can project. There's on those are the main good guys, you could say. On the bad side, the villain side, you've got the Necronite, who is he wears this really cool looking black and red armor. You don't see his face, you can only see his eyes. He's basically was brought back from the dead. So he was a knight that was killed, and the really big bad guy of the story, a guy named Vordum the Undying, has the power to bring living things back from the dead. So not just people, but anything that was living. So he brought the Necronite back from the dead to basically be his heavy, the guy that he sends out to take care of stuff. Because, Vordum's the big bad guy, the big boss, and while he's more powerful than the Necronite, if he doesn't have to get his hands dirty, he won't. And then the Necronite also has, I guess you could say, sidekick called Lilith, and Lilith is a shape changer. She's technically called a succubus, and she can change shape. So she can take on a different person shape, but she can also turn into, animal as well, or a dragon. And she has some other powers beyond that as well. So those are the main focus characters of the book right now. We're introducing more as it goes along, but got to tell you, can't give away all the spoilers because we're working on number 2 right now. Yeah, I mean, right now we're working on book 2. So while each book is a standalone story, there's always the little subplots and stuff that don't get wrapped up that will continue to the next one, but the main plot of each book does get wrapped up by the end. So, we're working on number 2 now. We have plans for a 3rd and 4th one as well for where we want the story to go. But, while we have the basic seeds of what's going to happen in those follow-ups 3 and 4, we are really just focused, obviously, on the second one. Figuring out the plot for Kordrath was, well, I'll be honest, for me it was the easier part because Dennis is we're co-creators, as in we did co-create the book and the characters, but when it comes to the overall storyline, the bulk of that is Dennis being the writer. So we talked about it, actually, this whole idea we talked about it's like a 2.5 hour drive when we were going to a convention over a weekend as guests. I was a guest at a con, and I brought up the idea to him, so we started throwing ideas back and forth. And after that, he basically went home and started fleshing out the story and where it could go. And when he had kind of an outline, he sent it to me and I read it over and we talked back and forth about certain aspects of it that whether I felt didn't work and just kind of talked it through. We changed some things in it. And after that, after we had the outline nailed down, it was all on him to go and actually write the script for me to draw from. If I could redo the first Kordrath, I mean, every job I do, there's always stuff I see that I could do better. And it's just like certain panels, I don't necessarily look at like a whole page and go, oh, I could do that whole page over. It's just certain panels, maybe I could have, pulled the camera in tighter or, tilted the character's head in a different way if it was a close-up. And then, of course, being your own worst critic, even after 33 years, everything that I think is a mistake in regards to the drawing just jumps out at me. But, Joe Kubert, the guy that founded the school I went to, I was lucky enough to have him as a teacher for 2 years. And he always would say, you just have to recognize it. If you recognize it at the time, of course, fix it. But if you see it after the project comes out and is published, you just have to move on because there's nothing you can do about it. So don't sweat it. Just think, okay, next time I'll do better. So never let your foot off the gas when you're working on a job. Always do your best. Do your best with the time you're given because that does play a role. If we have a specific amount of time to do the work. So you have to do the best in that given amount of time. And, as much as a perfectionist I am, there's a saying of, I think the saying is finished, not perfect, which means you can keep working at it. It'll never be perfect. And you might blow a deadline, which could hurt you in the long run. So finish it to the best of your ability and meet the deadline. Well, I've written 3 books on drawing. The first one is called Drawing Dynamic Comics. That came out in the year 2000. It went to 7 printings before they, I guess, pulled it. Then I wrote Drawing American Manga Superheroes, which came out in 2000. When did that one come out? 2007, I believe. 2005. That lasted for 1 printing. And I wrote a book called How to Draw Superheroes Sketchbook, which I partnered with a guy on. He designed the actual book because it's a smaller book, so you can basically travel with it easier. And the way the book is set up, everything I drew in the book is in this really light blue. So all you need is basically your pencil. And then the book has text in it to guide you through it, and you draw over top of the stuff that I did. So as you progress through the book, it's less of what I drew, so hopefully you're filling in the gaps as you learn along the way. So I've written those. My YouTube channel has some. I try to put a time-lapse drawing video up once a week. So I do a drawing of a character. It takes me probably an hour and a half. I time-lapse it, so it's, shrunk down to about anywhere from 1.5 to 3 minutes. So you can watch those. There are a few instructional videos I've put up as well. And I also do a thing called a book look on my channel where every Tuesday I pull a book off my shelf. I have a huge library of books. And basically I have the camera focused right down on the book, and they're art books generally. And I just do a page through of the entire book. And if the book is still available, I post a link in the description. So if you're interested, you can go buy it. And if it's not available, if there's an eBay link or something, I'll try and post that as well. But I just think it's fun to be able to show these different books, whether they're 20 years old or something that came out last year. So if it's something somebody's interested in, but they don't want to buy it without being able to look through it first, they can actually see a page through of the entire book and make a decision on if it's something they'd want to buy, or just bookmark it and revisit the video. Now those are longer. Those are about 25 to 30 minutes because some of these books are a couple hundred pages.
Name is Dennis Turner, Dennis. Turner is Turner. That's part of the problem, is how do you market something to somebody when you're not a big corporation? You can't throw it on TV. You can't throw it on the radio. So how do you do it? You find your outlet that you're good at. We do social media, so we do Facebook and Twitter, Instagram. I should say X now because they changed the name. And but we go out there and then we hop on other people's live streams. We have guests on ours, and we're constantly talking about it. People get interested, and then it becomes word of mouth. Well, I guess number one, if you're interested in doing something with comics, hopefully you have a love of comics, you've been reading them, you understand kind of what comics are about, and then figure out what you're interested in. Go from there. If you like fantasy, or if you like science fiction, if you like true detective crime stories, whatever the case may be, then I would suggest just writing something that totally interests you, because chances are it'll be better if you have a love of it. Well, I don't know if you want to call it hard. I mean, there's an infinite number of possibilities to the direction in which you can take it. So the question becomes, once you figure out who your characters are going to be, what direction do you want to take it? And as you kind of come up with your points going from point A, B, C, etc., you get to the end point, you have to figure out then, is this the route I want to go, or do I want to do something different and have to make changes to it? Well, this was a collective, this really was a collective effort, because number one, Andy had an idea of what I like to do, and I had an idea of what Andy likes to draw. Andy likes really strong, big, barbarian type people, and he draws very nice looking women, so it made sense if we were going to do barbarians, let's do something like that. So we kind of came up with this idea together, and thus Kordrath, The Gathering, was created. Well, it's not exactly hard if you know where you want to go from point A to point Z. The big thing is you want to continue the story. So with the first one, with The Gathering, it did kind of very nicely, put the story together, wind up with a nice little bow on it. But it was just one part of a bigger storyline. So, I've already kind of written out where the story's going to kind of go all the way through 4 volumes. So we will just continue putting it out. And with Kordrath, could I do something better with Kordrath? I don't know. It's hard to tell, especially with it new. I mean, if I could do anything, it would be a 300-page epic tale that Andy would have had to draw. And but I don't think he would have appreciated having to draw that much. So, I really enjoy how it came out. I think it came together very nicely. I think the flow was there. The character interactions were there. I don't know if there's a lot I would change about it. Maybe when the final one comes out, we could look back and maybe say, oh, I wish I would have maybe have done this or that. But for right now, I like the direction in which it's heading. Wow, that's a long ways away, because if this goes through for the 4 volumes, I mean, that's a long period of time just to do Kordrath. And then there would be options. The Shattered Reach is a very, very large place. So we could continue to create things within the world of the Shattered Reach. We could maybe think about doing something completely different. Maybe Andy would be tired of talking to me so much and not want to do anything with me. That is a prerogative. Oh yeah, matter of fact, even in Kordrath The Awakening that's coming out, we are going to be introduced, we're going to be introduced to some new monsters that are going to be in there that are very newly created for this book. You're going to be introduced to one of the elven race. So the elves are going to start coming in. So you're going to get your first look at elves. Now, not quite sure yet, but the Camellia, they're either going to be maybe towards this. Maybe you'll be mentioned. Don't know if we'll see them in this one, but probably by the 3rd one, they're a race of the camel people that are down there that are going to be very unique and different. Tie that in with the gaming module, because we're also doing, I'm working on the 2nd module right now for you old style gamers, that would be out there. I tried to do it from the old TSR modules, very much like that, from the late 70s, early 80s. In there, we have all new characters. It's still set in the Shattered Reach, but we are able to introduce all new characters, all new monsters in there, and what happens in there ties in directly with the comic book. So like I said, it's a big world building process, and yes, you will be introduced to lots of new characters and new opportunities to find out who's your favorite.